Cool. So, okay, this is weird. Like, I feel like I'm a singer on stage with this thing. And I tend to use like my hands to illustrate things. So I'm gonna be like, you're not gonna hear me all the time. So I apologize in advance. I'm just gonna get my clicker because I'm probably gonna walk up and down here. Cool. Clicker works. So, actually, before I even get into this, you saw the title, DevOps and the Future of InfoSec. This is a huge topic. I'm very interested in it because, well, I actually am a software engineer by profession. DevOps is something that's very relevant right now. I don't know how many people in this room actually do DevOps. Actually, on that note, I've done this talk once at DevOps Days Cape Town, and I did it again at Microsoft's community meetup. It got better. Wasn't as good at the first time. Biggest challenge is time. There's a lot to try and cover. And I need, ideally, to have an understanding of who's sitting in the audience and like what you guys do, because I don't want to talk about things that aren't relevant to you. DevOps happens across the entire lifecycle of building software, or any system. So everyone has a different role to play, and everyone has a part to do in DevOps. So can I get a quick raise? Well, one, please participate. Put your hands up when I ask you to put your hands up. Don't be shy. And then the other thing is, who here are professionals, people who do software development for a living or IT infrastructure, and who here are hobbyists, people who are just interested in this sort of thing and are at BSides because it's really cool. So let's start with the professionals. Hands up. Okay, what, about half people here? Hobbyists, I assume the other half. That's not half. Okay, so I'm going to probably focus more on professionals because, to be honest, this is actually probably more relevant to you. So what is my aim today? What we're going to be talking about? In general, just things that I have been thinking about around DevOps and security in general and the software development lifecycle. And then in particular, what it really means to do DevOps, because I think it's like, I don't know how many people did Agile here or know about how Agile development works, but it was invented way back in like 2000, 2001, essentially, and there's a lot of, let's just say, misunderstanding about and disagreement about how it actually works. And DevOps, I think, is starting to suffer from the same thing. So I think it's important for a whole host of reasons that we start to speak with a common language and we don't use buzzwords. That's like, I hate buzzwords. It's useless, meaningless. And then, of course, we want to talk about like, how does doing DevOps actually affect or impact doing security? And you'll notice I say data and computer-centric information systems. I was at ISACA end-of-year function last night. I don't know if you know ISACA. It's the Information Systems Audit and Control Association. Fun. It was actually. But I met one of the original creators of COBIT, which is a IT governance framework, and we were chatting. He was doing a talk. He was one of the key speakers. And he actually made the point that technology actually isn't IT. It's not just computer and digital-based technology, if you think about it. And this is something I believe as well. He's one of the few people I've heard speak about it publicly. Technology is a pen. It's a piece of paper. It's a filing cabinet, technically speaking, right? And technically, that's a kind of information technology. I guess we can argue about the definition, but I would argue that that's actually what it is. And it is important when you're looking at this holistically, because when you're an organization trying to build software or any system, you're not just looking at the IT component. It's a huge component, especially if you're building software, right? But it's not everything. So if you want to be a secure organization, it's important to take into account all the other physical aspects that can have an impact. But I'm not going to focus on that too much. I just want people to be aware of it. So yeah, let's move on. Okay, coming back to the motivation for my talk, lots of reasons. I think a big part of this is our industry, IT industry, isn't regulated quite as much as other industries. You know, you're not like an accountant or a lawyer or a medical practitioner. There's no bar for us. There's no psycha council. There's no mental health professionals council for us. There's an organization which I am a member of called the Institute of IT Professionals of South Africa. They act in kind of in a similar fashion. The difference is you're not legally mandated to be a member. But I think it's important we are seeking to be more professional in what we do, because it has massive impact on the people who use our products. I mean, you can have a website for mom and pop store, goes down, who cares, guys down for a few hours, it's fine. No one dies. But I think V last year did a talk on pacemakers and how they can get hacked. If you build software, it's easy to get into that system. You can kill someone. Or if you're building a life support system, you need to be able to build something that's robust, that's going to work, it's not going to fall over. So depending on what you're doing and how complex and how much impact it has, it's important to be more professional. Goes hand in hand, the idea that we want, business needs software to be of a higher quality and it needs to be delivered faster, right? If we want to be competitive, we want to build things that are meaningful, we need to do it quicker. And like I say here, the DevOps philosophy enables that. That culture enables that. It's not the tool, as I will argue here. I think there's an idea that's kind of quite pervasive that DevOps is about the tools that you use. Mic level. Does that help? Cool, sorry. I'm singing. Can we turn the mic up a bit? Do you think that would help? Sensitivity, I don't know. All right, we'll just shout at me if I do it again. Cool, so like I said, the philosophy is important, and I think that's the crux, and you'll see that's the point, one of the main points I'm going to be making. Also, I think most people here probably know this, security is often an afterthought, if not almost always, in a lot of places. And it's better to, as they're saying nowadays, shift left, I think it is shift left, closer to the beginning of your development lifecycle and right up at the point where your ideation stage even. Like when you're thinking about should I or shouldn't I do this, think about security, right? And coming back to the point, we need common language. So as I say, I'm quite opinionated about this stuff. I'm usually right. Sometimes I'm mistaken about that, but I just want to make the point that do your homework as well. What I'm going to say today, I've done a fair bit of research. My job is required that I do it. I just have an interest in this sort of thing, and I've been doing a lot of meetups this year, just talking to people. I think on average I've done probably about 2 meetups a week since January, if I include conferences and general meetups, a whole bunch of different groups. So I've got quite a few opinions and anecdotal evidence for things, but check for yourself, right? Okay, and then, as I said, this is a lot of stuff to cover, so Keegan's going to put up the 5-minute and the 10-minute and the 15-minute marks and warn me when I get too deep into this. And I'm probably not going to cover every last thing. So maybe if there's questions later, you're more than welcome to ask them either while I'm up here, if there's time left, or we can chat afterwards. All right, so let's get to know each other. I want you guys to get an idea that I actually know what I'm talking about and kind of where I'm from, to get a bit of context. I'm Silicon native from Cape Town, born and bred, been here most of my life. That might be a bit of a joke for some of you guys. First language I did any serious programming was Java back in high school, JDK 1.3. Yeah, C#, Microsoft, my .NET Dev. Sorry, guys. Shut up, Krista. And even worse, Pentium 1 with Windows 95. I can't. I'm technically, and if you're under 35, you're technically a millennial. And so sorry, guys. All right, cool. So that's basically a bit about me. And then my professional background. I made the mistake last time of talking too much about where I've worked and their names. It doesn't matter. My point was really to kind of give you an idea of where I've worked and also to kind of inform that everywhere I've been, the principles, from what I've seen anyway, they apply exactly the same way. Like it's not different for different businesses doing different software development, right? But I consider myself a technologist. I don't want to label myself a kind of a developer or any particular role because things change so fast in this industry, and also we're here to solve problems and provide solutions, and I think that's actually more important. I've been a founder. I've had 2 startups of my own. One straight out of high school. Got venture capital funding. Very lucky. Did that for almost 10 years. Got a bit bored. A lot of other reasons. Started another kind of business. Didn't work so well. And then I've worked for the last 5 years or so in kind of small to medium-sized business as well as 1 or 2 corporates. Fintech, document automation, riveting stuff with SharePoint. Content management systems, public safety software, which I'm currently working in now, and marketing automation and that sort of thing. So quite a wide range of different businesses. And I've worked in different team sizes as well. Tiny guys all in one place, all guys distributed across the world, different cultures, different languages, different time zones. I've been a full stack dev most of the time, although when I was running my own business, I had an operations job as well. Someone had to do the finance and the marketing and the sales and support and everything else. But I've been mostly focused on the web side of things. So I haven't done mobile or desktop as much as I've done web and cloud-based stuff. And I think that's where things are nowadays. It's the most important software. I could be wrong. Maybe there's some disagreement, but that's what I enjoy. This may or may not matter. Certifications and degrees only matter so much in my opinion. I'm actually self-taught. I straight out of high school, didn't go to varsity or anything like that. Maybe another reason to check me. But I have over the years picked up a few certifications. So I am Microsoft certified. I am technically a Scrum Master, and in the process of doing the CSSLP, which is, I don't know, does anyone know IC2? I presume people in the audience must know them, right? Security Consortium. I'm doing an application security certification and testing and ITIL, which I don't know. Actually, on that note, how many people do ITIL here, or at least know about it? Okay, cool. So there are a few. I'm not going to talk too much about it, but it will kind of be touched on. Yeah. And then also I'm a member of a few professional bodies and kind of organizations. So OWASP member, ISACA member, and Institute of IT Professionals. That's basically me. So enough about me and more about you. So this is going to be fun, and you might laugh. So who does sales and relationship management in this room? We have someone. I'm impressed. Okay, next one is, who does marketing? Okay, no, fair enough, off of Zen, I mean, makes sense. Whoops. Finance? Anyone? Okay. I'm going to try and move this along faster because I think I'm going to take too long. Anyone in C-suite leadership? Okay, 2 people. Anyone else? No? Yeah, so 3 people. Okay, human resources? No. Business analysts, big data analysts, that sort of thing? 1. I'm making a point here, don't worry. General admin, like just shit that needs to get done. No one. Anyone who's an in-house legal person or lawyer? Okay, cool. So we get to the interesting parts now. Yeah, okay, I lied. Project manager, coordinator. Anyone? Anyone even just certified as a project manager of any sort? Done it course? No? Okay. All right. Product manager, owner, I'm going to presume. Anyone? No? Okay. Software architects, there must be some in the room. Okay, couple. Software engineer. Okay, cool. Test engineer, anyone doing QA? Okay, there definitely has to be more of you, like unless somehow these other ones are more. Provisioning, managing IT infrastructure. Okay, cool, yeah, about the same amount. Dedicated security and compliance people. Okay, well, makes sense. Anything else that I've missed that anyone wants to raise? What are you, Vickers? General. That's an admin person. I mean, that's okay. The one-man shop. You have all of these. Actually, DevOps days I asked, like, who does X, Y, and Z? And the same guy kept putting his hand up for everything. I'm like, you must have a startup. So, okay, cool. So let's play a game. Okay, so for this game, might not be the funnest game. DevOps days, everyone just looked at me funny or quiet. But I have a bullshit button. And well, if you want to run up here, you can call me out as well. But I'm going to call you out if you get it wrong. So, and I don't know if you can only hear this. Hopefully you can. I'm going to try and put it to the mic. But basically, there's 3 questions. True or false? DevOps is only done by technical staff. Okay, let's do it this way. Put your hand up, because then I can bullshit you, because I don't know who's saying what right now. True or false? So who's saying true? No, put your hand back up.
Bullshit detected. Take precautions.
Okay, I'm so sorry. Not true. Yeah, I'll make the point now. It's not. So I've only got 2 hands, so sorry. False. True or false? DevOps is a role. Who says it's true? You're learning from me. And you would be right to say it's false. It's not a role. True or false? What? Who said? A lifestyle. You're very clever. You want a job? There we go. DevOps is a way of thinking about how we do work. True or false? Yeah, well, so it's a little bit obvious. I feel like I should just press the bullshit button for fun. Can I?
Bullshit level, DEFCON 5.
That's for you. Okay, cool. So the point is this. DevOps is not IT ops. Okay, and that's why I asked the questions about who's in finance, who's legal, who's an admin, who's an HR person, who's C-suite. You find that terminology like words are being invented like biz DevOps, dev test ops, ops dev, DevSecOps, and in a kind of a small context or limited context, I think it's true to say that, yeah, you could use the term if you wanted to, right? You can make it mean whatever you want, but it's not practical, and it's not what DevOps was originally basically designed or created to do. DevOps is a holistic framework or ideology, say philosophy, right? It's the dev side of things, meaning anyone who's involved with building software on a technical basis, as well as the people who are part of implementing that technology that's been built in a production environment, right? Getting it out to a customer. And that includes the decision makers too. People who are going to finance your project, people who are going to sign off on the legalities of it, people who are going to find resources for it, people who are going to market it, people who are going to sell it. They all have a say at the end of the day. And if they don't, there's a good chance you're not going to get the funding you need. You're going to find that you run into compliance or legal issues, and then the product's going to be taken off the market or not allowed to enter the market or some other issue, or you put it in the market and you'll get sued or something. If you're not marketing it or not getting marketing input, they're going to sell the wrong thing and they're going to market the wrong thing. So it's important that the whole organization plays a role. It's not just the technical guys building something and saying, there you go, done, right? Although there's a very big component of this talking about how do you take your code that you've built and put it into a production environment. And often infrastructure and IT people, well, I don't want to use the word IT people, but infrastructure people are responsible for that. So, right. Oops. So things that are associated with DevOps. I mean, this is just a very limited list, but I think these are the common ones. Does this look familiar to people? Just out of interest? I mean, does anything here stick out as not being right or not making sense? You people and your tools. Wrong. False. Very appropriate. Okay, but I think going to that point, we've even got a laser pointer on this thing. First time I've had this. Going backwards. There we go. These things, monitoring, measurement, empiricism, that's something that I think everyone understands. Everyone generally knows that's important when you do DevOps, right? That kind of goes hand in with experimentation, automation. Also, things that everyone knows about DevOps. Things that people don't maybe think about quite so much are the continuous delivery. Okay, that is kind of there, but the things like the 3 ways, flow, culture, being lean, and then the other systems thinking. And I mean, people might have an innate kind of understanding of these things, but it's not something that we typically speak about. Like if you're sitting on the floor with your dev team or your IT ops team or anyone else, people, at least in my experience, don't tend to speak about those things. They're talking about what tools can I buy to make my life easier, what process can I implement in those tools, and then I'm done. DevOps is finished. Okay, so what is DevOps really? So I've got a couple myths which I have pulled out from DevOps Handbook, which make perfect sense to me. And I think these are a good place to start to kind of understand what DevOps is and what it isn't. How many people here do Agile or have worked in Agile environments? Just out of interest to get an idea. Half. So DevOps is, if you go read the literature, DevOps is almost a natural continuation of Agile. It's not something different. The difference is that you've gone from building out software to giving it to the IT guys or the infrastructure guys to put it into the production environment, right? And so all they've done is instead of like building the thing, using Agile maybe, and then getting your artifacts prepared and throwing it over the wall to the infrastructure people, you are essentially working with them like a software team would with the rest of their team, and you are essentially building increments towards your infrastructure. So as software is built out, you talk to the guys and say, oh, we need another server, or we need more RAM, or we need a firewall, or we need whatever it is to build it out. And a lot of that's also automated. So you build APIs rather for helping devs to help themselves, right? So you're almost acting like an internal customer to the IT operations team. And so it's actually just Agile for IT ops, if that makes sense. ITIL, I won't touch on this for too long, but essentially the idea that it's not compatible. Most of the kind of things that are mandated in ITIL, at least from what I've seen so far, are all automatable. Like everything can be, most of it can be automated. You don't have to do this stuff manually. A lot of it's just paperwork. It's deciding what the process should be and how you're going to get people to do it. Okay, this is a more interesting slide, I think. The idea that DevOps is incompatible with InfoSec and compliance. I think probably most people in this room would innately say that's untrue. So it's really just integrated at every level of the life cycle. I mean, this is a diagram I got from a company called Checkmarks, which does scanning of static code analysis and dynamic code analysis and that sort of thing. And they have tools which integrate directly into your IDEs and into your continuous build servers and your continuous deployment servers that can kick off scans and tests and that sort of stuff as you go, right? So it's something that you can integrate. It's not something you do after you've built everything and then throw it to the QA guys and the security team to test. It's part of what we do daily. Infrastructure people tend to be scared of this idea because they think that DevOps means no infrastructure, no ops at all. It's not true. Your job just changes. You're doing it slightly differently. So there we go. Really the case. You're collaborating more with people and much earlier in the life cycle. You're enabling developers with APIs and other self-help tools so that they can deploy code and monitor things themselves, and you act as a service provider to the development team. Okay. Infrastructure as code. So I found this quite funny. Chris, oh, geez, this is like the perfect time to make fun of him. Lee is the director of DevOps at Iprio, a fintech company I used to work at, and he was also speaking at a DevOps Days conference, and he sent me this, and I thought it just made perfect sense because I don't have any memes, so this is my meme for the talk. Everyone thinks it's tools. It's not tools. It's not as infrastructure. You can use infrastructure as code and tools to achieve things, but it's not the definition, right? I like this quote. DevOps isn't about automation, just as astronomy isn't about telescopes. Does that make sense? All right? I like that. So what it really boils down to, I think the gentleman over here, not watching what I'm doing, is probably on his phone. It's terrible. It comes down to culture, and I like to say it's about teamwork that enables efficient value creation. Because that's what we're trying to do at the end of the day, right? We're trying to create something that people can use and that adds value to their lives. All right. Is anyone unconvinced at this stage? Because if you are, those are the people you want to talk to and the books you want to read. Jez, Humble, Patrick Dubois, Gene Kim, the other guys I don't know so much about, but they seem to be the kind of originators of DevOps. They've written some really fantastic books. I cannot recommend enough that you at least read The Phoenix Project. That book changed my perspective of software development on a whole other level. It just reset me. And it just it's so relatable. Every single thing you do as a software developer or someone working in IT is covered in this book. All the pain and the suffering you go through. I mean, it's a novel, so there's characters you just want to punch, but you can't because they're in a book. But it's very relatable. So please make the time to read it. It's not expensive to buy. I got the audiobook. If you like audiobooks, go to Audible or one of those places. Cool. So the interesting part again, where does security actually fit in? Security is fundamentally about managing risk. I think I probably don't need to sell most people in this place on it. And you'll never be 100% secure. So basically, you could have a house, you could have a little white picket fence, and that's your security. Or you can be a house with a big wall and a guard dog and ADT and electric fences, and you've got to put the things that you need in place to make your organization, your environment secure for the context you're in. And you've got to work that out based on the kind of risk you have. Secondly, mitigating risk is about maintaining integrity, availability, and confidentiality. I think if you get those things right, those are like the core security principles. I think anyone who works in security who's serious knows about this. And if you get this right at a fundamental level, then you've already covered, I think, most of your bases. And again, this happens throughout the different pipelines that you put up for your development lifecycle. So basically, security principles haven't changed. That's another thing worth thinking about. Have those changed? No, definitely not. I like this kind of analogy. We've gone from this to something like that. We're just high tech now. So it's the way we implement things that have changed, but the principles remain the same. If you get the principles right, you'll be fine. So these are the kind of security principles that, well, some of them anyway, I'm sure there are more, that we can focus on. I presume, again, most people in this room are familiar with these. So I won't spend time on trying to define them or explain them, but if you have any questions, more than welcome to ask. And so, again, coming back to the point, where do the compliance stuff, where does all that fit in? It's everywhere. It's the entire life cycle. Okay, the key takeaways. As I said, I'm pretty much done now. I think I'm doing all right in time, primarily about culture of teamwork that enables efficient value creation. And security principles haven't changed, so if you get those right, you can implement practically in whatever environment you're in. I think that's it. Questions, if any? How did I do on time? Oh, don't lie. Probably, yeah. I think at DevOps days I was at 35 minutes and I literally ran out of time. All right. Yeah, sure. How many slides would you like? Oh, right. So it's a couple. So I've been doing my certification for IC2. Oh, sorry. Terrible. I've been doing certification or studying for certification with IC2, the Certified Secure Software Lifecycle Professional certification. And a lot of the stuff is covered in that course. Also, OWASP is a very good resource on that sort of thing. So basically, it's just a mix of these things. But I find that across all the literature I've read, all the studying that I've been doing, even in things like ITIL, you find these principles are there. Like it's very consistent. So, does anyone want to ask any questions about what they mean?
I like this statement here that DevOps became like the word hacker. It is not being used the way it was initially intended to be or coming back to.
Yeah, I agree.
Abuse it, like you have a DevOps engineer.
Yes. Yes.
And that's then where I've seen actually recently, was I think on the LISA 2018 talks about sysadmins. And sysadmins that's being pushed away by DevOps because now the developers is being doing the operations. Instead of understanding that the sysadmins just need to adjust their way of thinking. They are, all of these principles and stuff is stuff that's being done by sysadmins. And they are the guys that are looking after the security also. But they are being pushed out by the developers. So the developers that do that first thing, like you said, in development, don't think about security initially.
Yeah.
Instead of looking at the sysadmins, they are pushing out the sysadmins because the developers can now do the sysadmin work. And companies are abusing this in the way that they are cutting costs because the developers can do the ops work. Why do we need the sysadmin for this?
Yeah, I think that's quite true. I don't think that the roles changed. I think maybe companies might be trying to find excuses to cut down on their staff complement. That could be very valid. Depends on the company. I don't know all of them, obviously. But you're right. Like it's not a role, and I find a lot of people I've spoken to, at generally kind of higher, more senior levels, more management kind of levels, don't like when I say to them, it's a philosophy. Stop it with your role. Like, it's nonsense. Like, it doesn't exist. Everyone does DevOps, and they don't like that. And they try and hire people who can do a bit of everything, like you say. But what should happen is you should just make better use of the resources you have and do more with them, because you can. That's the whole point. It's meant to make you more efficient and to do more meaningful work and automate away the things that are menial and that don't add real, like, significant value. So I don't know how to solve that. It's the sort of thing you kind of maybe have to have a discussion with your management or the people who are blocking that, who don't agree, either by forcing them to go and do the homework and read the stuff and then convince themselves, or to have that discussion and slowly implement things that would convince them over time. And then over time, you get them to do it. I mean, I struggle with that as well. I irritate people where I work right now, because also we're a startup, and startup suite, you do what you have to do as well. You're not corporate, you haven't got your rigid structures in place yet. So not that DevOps needs to be rigid. You do just the minimum you need to do to be productive. But yeah, it's a problem. I don't know. Is there anyone here who's maybe experienced that, who would like to share their experiences on that note and add to this? No. Any other questions, maybe?
Going back to the point of sharing, implementing. So we got a company I work for, it's European company, which is quite rigorous in the internal structure.
Can I maybe give you a mic? I don't know if it'll help.
Sure, yeah, maybe. Okay, so just coming back to your question about sharing. So the company I work for is a European-based company, what they call a MSSP, Managed Services Security Services Provider. And what we're doing, I'm part of a team that does a lot of development and research and stuff like that. So it doesn't really fit in with the core business process. But what we are doing at the moment is inside that tightly controlled ISO 27001 process and all the other stuff around that, we have our own internal team that we're running on a DevOps basis, where everybody in the team is doing DevOps. So, and DevOps, not necessarily what you're saying is the engineers doing everything and the other guys sitting on the side, but we're involving all the people on the peripheral and just explaining them the way we're working stuff. It's a bit different from the external, let's say, core business. We still have to comply to GDPR. Still have to comply to all the other CAB meetings and all the other stuff they have. But what we're doing is we're just orchestrating our workflow in a way that fits something similar to this. And it's just not myself or my colleagues that are doing one little bit. Everybody's contributing. Everybody's being involved, from the monitoring team, from the deployment team, from the guys that are doing the infrastructure. So it fits perfectly in that. And this is an example what we're doing is like a mini DevOps inside a big organization. And they're basically leaving us to do our own little ecosystem, our own little sandbox, because we can't just go through their whole process. Because if we just had to wait for them and all their process, it takes too long. But they're allowing us that little freedom. So it can work. We have a little mini DevOps running inside a big organization, as long as you just feed into their processes, into their little tick boxes, if I can. It can work as well in that little, let's say, ecosystem.
Thanks. I agree with that. I think, again, it's like Agile. They say adapt to your environment. There's not like 100 hard rule. It's just the underlying principle. And essentially, it sounds to me like you are doing DevOps as an organization, because you're as long as you're bringing the other departments and teams and people into the process of making decisions about what you're building, you've achieved what you set out to do. How you do that in practice might be different. Yeah, sure. It might take time, and also it depends, I guess, how big is your organization. Like, if you've got thousands and thousands of employees spread across, it's going to be very hard to implement that if you don't have someone at the top maybe forcing it down. And I don't know how many C-suite people are that clued up about this or that. It's not a priority for them. As long as the work gets done and they can make money, it's fine. It doesn't have to be perfect. Although I would say everyone should be pushing to adopt the best practice. So, yeah, cool, thanks. Anyone else with any thoughts, questions? I'm pretty much done, so I'll take as many questions as you have. Yeah.
Hi. I've been through quite a few different employers and corporates and ways of working, and there always seems to be, or things that work always seem to have a sort of common principle, and to me it seems to be communication. I worked on fifth generation languages, sort of code generation stuff when I first came to South Africa in '92, and we were doing things like joint application development meetings, and you got the users and you got your technical and you got everybody together. It worked. As long as the team worked together and people were on board and we communicated. I've worked in an agile development, and again, if you get a good team and people communicate, it works. I'm working in a very small company now, where we all know each other and we know what each other does. We communicate well, and it works. Where it fails is where you don't communicate. And I think, and that seems to be the common thread. It actually, for me, it doesn't actually matter which system you use. I don't know. Yeah, maybe I'm a bit cynical about all these names that come up, and it's like, yeah, we're going to call it this, and this is the way you must work. Yeah. But yeah, I think if you get people on board, and you get people who are passionate about what they're doing, and you communicate, things just tend to work. It's yeah.
Yeah, I think you've nailed it. I mean, that is what fundamentally the culture or philosophy of DevOps is actually trying to do. It's trying to implement processes that make communication easier and better, and you get people talking to each other more regularly, more incrementally, not just having big meetings at the end of things. And what's interesting, we talk about the names. DevOps is a kind of an unfortunate name in a way. It was Patrick Dubois who was the kind of first, I suppose, founder, if you like, or creator of DevOps initially, and he did it almost by accident because there was kind of a general consensus within the industry. I think this was around Silicon Valley, and Patrick Dubois was based in Belgium, but the point is that there was this consensus across the Atlantic, and so he organized the first DevOps Days conference, and they called it DevOps Days because they were like, well, we know that Dev and Ops, there's a lot that can be brought together that we can do better, we can communicate better, we can be more efficient. So let's get the dev guys and the ops guys together in one room and have a conference and talk about it and how we're going to figure this out. And inadvertently, he kind of invented the term DevOps. And it was just the typical IT thing we do. We just take a bunch of words that we think kind of relate and we just put them together as an acronym or something, and there you go, new term. So, and it's stuck, which is another reason why I'm very kind of concerned about allowing words or terms like DevSecOps or BizOps Dev or whatever, like coming into existence, because they don't mean anything. They become buzzwords. And if they do have any meaning, it's only in a very limited space. So that's not very useful, I think, for the industry as a whole. I mean, people move around companies. I mean, the thing is, most IT people, as far as I know, and I'm sure this applies to other businesses as well in this modern age, but people don't stay in a company more than maybe 2 to 5 years. And more often than not, it's 2 to 3 years. So when you leave, are you taking knowledge and skills and language that can be applied somewhere else, or are you going to spend a year arguing with people at the next organization about what should be, or just doing whatever they say and like being miserable because you don't know what they're talking about, and again, not being as efficient as you can be. So I think it's important that we try and develop a more consistent terminology. So I agree with you 100%. Yeah. Any other questions? No. Smitty, you want to hand over?
Not sure if it's a question or comment. The psychological acceptability, I'm guessing it's more around the controls. So if you're saying, hey, you will use two-factor auth, or you will have a password that's 26 characters long, and you will change it every month, and then you're going to have the stickies, etc. Cool. Can you tie that into DevOps as a couple of examples, or? I'm throwing you under the bus here, but hey.
No, that's a real thing. That's a real thing. I mean, I deal with it. Like, so we're using Veracode right now in our development lifecycle to do static code analysis and dynamic code analysis, or dynamic scans, right? So Veracode, and like a lot of the competitor tools, they have a plugin for your IDEs. We use Visual Studio because we're a .NET house mostly, and basically it enables developers to basically do a scan directly into from their IDE. Now that's one more step a dev has to do, and it's a manual step. So it's a bit like code review. You put in a pull request. We also happen to use Git. See, Windows house using Git, crazy. Yeah. So you're asking guys to do another manual step that they got to remember. And I mean, people are fallible, human. You get caught up with what you're building. Often you're really, like, to be blunt, shitting yourself because you haven't been given proper specs up front. You're not sure you're going to meet the deadline because it wasn't reasonable maybe to begin with. That happens a lot. So you're more concerned about building something that just about works by the time you've got to get it out. And so every step you've got to remember to do, like to do a scan, do a bit of extra dev testing, communicate with the top quality assurance people, like dedicated testers and that sort of thing. It's a problem. So psychologically, they don't accept it. You know, if you want to break it back, it's hard to get them to just do it. And every step you force someone to do, it's you're adding inefficiency in a way. It's efficient in the big picture, but in that little space, they feel like, well, I could be doing the thing that I'm good at more than the stuff that you're asking me to do. So you're trying to convince them. But I think the only way you do that is to get them on board the whole organization's aim and goal. And that is to say, well, you're here to do your job, yes, and to enjoy it and to do it well, but we're a team and we're building this bigger thing that we're all pays our salaries at the end of the day. And so, you know, you need to accept this as for what it is. If you don't want to do that, then you need to work for yourself as an individual consultant or a very small company where this sort of thing isn't as much of an issue. The bigger you get, the more corporate you get, the more teams you've got to work with, the worse the problem, generally. So, yeah.
Just to follow up on that same question, one of the other approaches could be you're going to take that step and automate it. So as they push the code in, because using Git, then it kicks off the Git hook or something and kicks off the build process. And part of the build process is to run a, you know, so in terms of tooling and automating, I think that's the other way to address at least the psychological problems. You do have to take them into account, and that might be the reason why you do it that way. I can ask another question about something else. We'll let you on.
I want to respond to that. We have another mic. On that note, we do both. So sorry? If there is one, it might be useful to pass it around. Magnus? Got a spare mic? No? It doesn't matter. Basically, we do both. So as part of our build pipeline or CI/CD pipelines, we do have integrations with Veracode there as well. So it reads directly out of our source control and then does a scan of the binaries and that sort of thing. So we do look at that, but it's also, again, comes back to this point about shifting left or doing security earlier in the life cycle. The last thing you want is devs to build stuff and then be like, cool, it's ready, it's integrated, it doesn't break anyone else's stuff, it's in QA now. And then as part of your QA or your testing process, you've got security automation tests running. And it says, oh, there's like this whole list of vulnerabilities that could have been sorted when you were about to check in your code. So we do both. Because one helps catch stuff that was missed, and two, we're being more efficient and also getting people to think about the fact that you need to be doing security as well. Because security, again, on this note, actually, you don't have, traditionally, arguably, you've had security organizations, you've had teams which are dedicated to security, and it's not to say that there isn't a need for this still, but the idea that you need to have a security team doing all the security work is nonsense. Because everyone's responsible for quality, everyone's responsible for security, everyone's responsible for things working on that level. And so you play a little role in that process. So your security team then just does the last big stuff like pen testing and running these scans and checking the reports to see what's there and going back to the dev team and saying, fix that. So yeah, both are important. You had another question. Unless anyone else has a question. I'm going to give him a turn.
Thank you. So you've referred to it a few times. You used Veracode to do code reviews. Right. What about codification as a principle? Sorry, say again, what about? Codification.
Codification. Explain it to me.
So basically it is, you've got what seems to be, principles, obviously, but also the practicality side of it should be included, in my view, where the code that you deploying gets verified and checked as part of a principle.
Right.
Sorry.
Cool.
So yeah. So ultimately, maybe I should elaborate on that. So it is about the vetting of the code from a sort of a central repository of approved for example, libraries. So when you deploy, you're using secure libraries and secure code. Would that be considered as a principle?
So yes, short answer. Yeah, so having like an artifact repository in place where you can control what libraries and packages you have available to devs, or any one organization that might use it, it's important because one, you can control security, like what I'm gonna go stand on the stage. What people can actually get access to from a security point of view, but you can also control functionally what people can use, which is also quite a nice plus. So if devs like to try the latest and greatest packages, not just because it's more secure, it's because that's got a feature that I need or it fixed a bug, and you really want to control that to some extent. You don't want to like limit them every sprint like for months. No, you can't have that latest build unless there's a really good justification for avoiding it because maybe some critical issue which affects the bigger application. But you do need that. That's one part of it, and the other part of it is from a code review point of view. When you do functional code and you're just making sure that it does its job, someone should review that before it gets checked into your dev branch or your QA branch or whatever it is to make sure that it basically plays well and that you haven't missed anything. Just have that second pair of eyes looking over things. And again, that second pair of eyes should also be security minded, and they should be looking at it from the point of view of functionally, but also looking for things that are obvious security issues. I mean, I find code reviews tend not to be extensive. People don't have time. It's usually a team lead or someone who's been given the role for this week or this sprint to be the person reviewing, and they've got their own work as well, and so they don't really sit there looking line by line, reading your code as if they were writing the code themselves. So they give it a quick once over, and then they're like, cool, didn't see anything crazy, and it goes in. And that's also a bit of a risk, but you're weighing up practicality between getting something out, and you then can rely on things like your static code analysis to hopefully pick up anything serious that's been missed, or your customers eventually, if in the worst case scenario. Interesting. Anyone not using Veracode, like a different tool, or is it just everyone using check marks? Oh, really? Where do you work? Jumo. Okay, I think they got like 2 clients here. It's Standard Bank and probably Jumo. I don't know. It's interesting, and it's not a like a judgment. Cool. I hope that answers the question. Any other thoughts, questions? Wrap it up. Cool. You get a longer break. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you very much, Darin. So we're going to have about a half an hour break. The next talk starting at 10:30. Yeah. Okay. See you guys at 10:30.